these, when I face cases like these at CPFSA, and I'm able to case map a child, sometimes it's really beneficial to separate the child, most times, because we'd like to break a generational cycle. So I am going to recommend that, listen, this child needs to be removed if this child is going to be different, right? So let us delve a little bit in, before I delve into depression, I want us to understand that as Christians, genetics is not our identity. It is a vulnerability. It's not your destiny. So we don't claim mental illnesses as Christians, right? We are here to overcome. All right, so here are some common signs and symptoms within the home. Depression. So this is where the partner or the child, whoever it is feeling very sad. And they don't want to wake up. And they close the curtain every morning. And they light the place when it's dark because they want the blackout curtains all the time. And everything is just dark. Sleeping too much. Sleeping too little. And the things that they used to enjoy, they're not enjoying it anymore. They withdraw from family. So if you notice, they used to have TV time. They used to chill together. They used to go to church together. All of a sudden, they're just withdrawing. That's a red flag. The hopeless statements. Listen to what they say. Boy, I can't bother no more. Just tired of life. Nothing me I gonna make it very far. Yeah, man. Me don't really have much time left, you know. Those are red flags and statements that we should look out for. No. Depression is common among Christians. Estimates, research suggests that millions of Christians experience major depression each year. Survey indicates that 23% of pastors, leaders report personally struggling with a mental illness at some point. And worship attendance can help, but it doesn't prevent everyone from being depressed. Please write your questions down. If needs be, I will be able to answer at the end of the presentation. So we're still at common signs and symptoms. So we just talk about depression. So here's another one that's very popular, especially in children. Anxiety, restlessness, just can't keep steady. Irritability, panic attacks, the overthinking, overanalyzing, and the physical symptoms such as the heart racing, the sweating excessively, those are red flags. So let's talk about the common signs, again, in the home is psychosis, which usually comes with schizophrenia, and they call this the cancer of mental illness because it's one of the most difficult ones to treat. So I have a picture here. Psychosis includes, like, if they're hearing voices, they're paranoid, so they'll be like, they'll say to you, I feel like somebody just watching me all the time. And I think if I go down there, they're going to attack me. There's somebody that's always out to attack me. People don't like me, you know. That's a paranoia. Talking to self. No, let me just get this straight. I talk to myself, but I don't hear anybody talk back. You can't talk to yourself. Okay? Believing things that are not real. And disorganized behavior. The behavior is just so confusing. So that them doing this, they're doing it in a weird way. You're in a normal setting and they're behaving abnormal in a setting. So, I want you to look closely at this image. The image can symbolically represent several experiences often associated with schizophrenia. You see the fragmented self? That is the fragments falling off there. The split face, the breaking pieces, that symbolize a disrupted, fragmented perception of identity. So they have lost their identity. Individuals with schizophrenia sometimes report feeling disconnected from themselves or from reality. You see, the overwhelming internal experience, that hands gripping the head, can represent this mental overload, such as intrusive thoughts that just come up and them can't control it, the auditory hallucination, the voices telling them to do things that they don't really want to do, but they're debating with that voice in their heads, intense internal stimuli that feel uncontrollable. You see, the broken, falling fragments, it may reflect how their reality can feel. So we have a current crisis with our children. The level of conduct and behavioral problems that we're having, the aggression, the acting out, they act out. They don't come and tell you that I am not feeling well today, you know, or the children are not going to come and communicate with you like that. They act out. So you should be noticing within your home if there's a difference in how the child is acting out all of a sudden. Him seem just aggressive all of a sudden. All of a sudden him start steal and he not no reason for stealing. You know? Child needs help because the child is not going to come out and say, I am having this. Because remember, their communication is still being developed. No remorse. You could have beat them from now till Whopper kill Philip, then I feel nothing. So they have no remorse and they're numb. And they go there and they play with the animal and they beat up the animal without showing no empathy. If you say, why you do the animal like that? Huh? Defiance. Go and wash the dishes. I expect you to spread your bed when you get up in the morning and not even to do that. Not do it. Oh, you talk to you. You can't talk to me. Cruelty. Cruelty to others and cruelty to family members and animals. So church leaders may notice the sudden withdrawal from fellowship of some of the members who are experiencing symptoms of mental illnesses, extreme emotional outbursts, when the pressure reaches and you just scream out, persistent spiritual paranoia. Oh, and there's one that is so popular. I wonder if the pastor of the church recognizes this one. The ones that overwork themselves. It's face, they don't want to face something, you know. And I'm telling you that they're so good at their work. They're working, but there's something behind overworking. Right? So another sign is, you know, the church sister that calls you out of fear and she said, God is telling me, say, and you have to do this and you have to do that. But it just not add up to you because it sounds disorganized. And when you come off of the phone, you wonder, oh, what she say? What was she saying? Or the inability to function in ministry roles. Isolation after service. You don't want nobody to recognize what's happening. So here's the red flag. When spiritual language is used to mask psychological distress, we have to watch out for that. Right? So how do we care for our brothers and sisters within the church family when there's a sign and symptom of a little mental illness going on? What you do not do is you do not shame them. Nobody separate away because clearly we're in the church and we grew up in the church and we have been praying and nothing don't happen. So we have to try something different. Don't call them lazy. Don't isolate them. And do not ignore their symptoms. And don't even dismiss the warning signs that they're showing. What we can do for them is listen without judging them. Do not judge them. Validate their feelings. I understand that you feel this way today, Sister Jane. And I maybe can't relate, but you are feeling sad. How can I support you? Encourage professional help. Visit a doctor who is able to refer. Get some counseling. Visit the various agencies out there that can support, even though we have such a backlog. But it's about time the churches themselves create their own avenue for healing. We should have a counseling arm in every church by now, right? Ensure medication compliance is important because individuals with mental illnesses and they have abnormal sleep pattern, you should not be missing out on your 6 to 7 hours of sleep. If you're missing out on that, you are at risk for a mental breakdown. So you should have been taking some sleep aid so that you can put your brain and your body in relax mode, right? Create a structured daily routine. Very important. Remove access to harmful items if risk exists. So how can the church respond? Create safe conversations. Partner with a mental health professional. Stop labeling everything as demonic. Offer prayer and therapy referral too. Do both. Don't leave out the two. Train leaders in mental health awareness. Now, let me just touch on this sensitive topic. So let me just approach it very carefully. Demon possession versus mental illness. Mental illness versus spiritual oppression. Some spiritual oppression has to do with the rare and specific signs. It does not respond to medication. It's not genetic. And it often sudden spiritually manifests itself. And manifestations are outside of a clinical pattern where a practitioner or a clinical person can identify the symptoms. So the mental illness is diagnosable patterns, respond to medication, so we can see if we give them medication, something improves. Family history is normally often present, and it develops gradually. And symptoms consistent with a manual of mental health disorders that is created. And every year it changes based on the reoccurrence of different types of mental illnesses that are occurring. Now, back in the days, many conditions that were labeled as demonic possessions are now understood as epilepsy, schizophrenia, the bipolar disorder, and the PTSD. But medical evaluation must always come first. Send them to the doctor. Get a medical checkup. Let the doctor identify the symptoms and let the doctor tell you what is going on and make the clinical recommendations necessary. Spiritual care should not replace psychiatric care. The two should go together. Right? Now, I guess most families in Jamaica, at some point in their bloodline, there's somebody that has a mental illness. Can I see all those who know somebody in their family that has a mental illness? Put up your hand. Exactly. So there's somebody in your bloodline that possibly has a mental illness, and that is understandable because we're talking about the history of Jamaica. We're talking about where we're coming from, things like that, right? So mental illness runs in family due to genetics, trauma patterns. So here's the reality. Every Jamaican probably have a trauma pattern person if we're coming out of slavery. Slavery alone is trauma for us. Okay? That's the facts. And learned behaviors, environmental stress. If we ignore this, it worsens across generations. It's going to lead to addiction problems, violence increases, and suicide risk increases, and families will fracture. Why is it that we must address mental health concern matters when it comes on to our bloodlines. Here's the reality. If one generation refuses to address a mental illness, it don't disappear. It becomes stronger. If one generation chooses healing, the pattern can weaken. You see how we can help each other? And intervention today changes tomorrow's family history. That's a fact. So you see why we have to face it and just deal with it from now. And while you're healing the weakest link or the individual that is struggling with a symptom of a mental illness, you're actually healing your family, but you don't recognize it. Because there's expected compassion and care that can manifest itself in the bloodline that actually heals the bloodline and protects the generations to come. So we have some work to do, right? Right. So if we intervene, we are breaking generational cycles. We can't come to church every day and clap and sing, and we can't break a generational cycle. We have work to do. There's a mission that needs to be accomplished. We have to restore dignity within our family settings. We have to protect our children. They are the future. They are Jamaica. We will be directly affected later on in our lives when we don't protect our children from now. We can strengthen the legacy of our bloodlines. So your bloodline, my bloodline, our bloodline is worth protecting. So let us just connect now the dots. Connecting the renewing of the mind, which was God's tools for us to utilize. Renewing of the mind means this. It's identifying inherited unhealthy beliefs. So you first have to identify the unhealthy belief within your home and within your church that you are believing. Identifying inherited unbeliefs, challenging distorted thinking, learning how to regulate your emotions, rebuilding family communication, and seeking therapy and spiritual growth. You are not just healing yourself. You are interrupting an unhealthy pattern when you can face these things and confront it. Romans 12 verse 2 reminds us, how else can you be transformed? You can only be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So we must stop shaming mental illness. Stop spiritualizing everything. Seek professional support. Pray wisely. Love intentionally. Protect our bloodline. Mental illness is not always just an individual problem. Mental illness is not a curse. It is a condition that requires our love, our compassion, and our intervention. All right. Do you guys have any questions for me? Thank you very much for listening attentively. Any questions? I put it to the floor. And there's no wrong question.
Okay, I was just saying that suppose you have a person that is, you're finding that the person is getting out of hand where they start drinking, start acting out, and all of that. When you go to the doctor, they are requesting that they take some medication for it. I'm asking that if that medication can cause them to get weaker or eventually get act out more later on.
Well, the first thing is most mental health medications were created to to help with healing the brain. That's the first thing. And it would be unethical for any doctor to provide a medication that is going to be of detriment to an individual, right? In the case of drinking, smoking marijuana, like addictive drugs, we are noticing that individuals self medicate themselves like that. That's what they're doing, which they shouldn't. So, most times, if we had caught the problem early, take them to the doctor prescribes such, the urges, that feelings, that overwhelming feeling that they are going through, which is causing an emotional dysregulation, it would have prompted them now to take the weed or the drink because it's a temporary relief. So a temporary relief is what they're addictive to, not knowing that if they take the medication and give it time, you would have a permanent relief. Yes. No, they're normally weaned off. Once they're improving, they are weaned off. And then the doctor will advise how they will instruct the patient to do so.
How, okay, how early in a person's life can mental health occur? Depression or so, how early?
Well, mental health can occur as young as a baby because it can be transmitted during pregnancy. So sometimes you find like the autism, it's a form of mental health. But um, depression can occur as at any point from birth to adulthood. Seeing the signs and symptoms is would be very strategic to be observed during childhood versus adulthood and versus teenager. And we all know adolescence is like one of the rough stages in development. I mean, let's be real. All of us know that the worst stage of development, I call it, is adolescence. That's the confusing. And that's the stage that we do need a lot of attention, right? Right.
Okay. I don't want to misquote you, but did you say it's okay to speak to yourself?
It's okay to talk to yourself. So in therapy, we suggest something called self-talk.
All right, but hold on, hold on. How often should one speak to themselves?
Well, it would be abnormal to speak to yourself when somebody is speaking to you. And it would be abnormal to be speaking to yourself and then you're in a setting where it's expected that you're quiet.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how you know it becomes abnormal when you're overdoing it in a different setting
Right.
or in the wrong context.
Yeah. And speaking almost like answering yourself.
Right. But if you're answering yourself positively, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like I might get up this morning and I was like, hey, Deborah, listen, you need to get it together. You have goals to achieve this morning and you're supposed to be at the doctor by 8 o'clock. And then you have a client at 7 tonight. And between 7 and 7, maybe you could just take a break, right? Yes, I do need a coffee. Maybe I should go and sit down and I'm not mad. Exactly. I mean, it's better you do it than AI right now, and AI control your whole life. Any other questions? Oh, why do people hallucinate? Well, because there are different sections of the brain, and I think the brain is understudied. Um, we as Jamaicans, we didn't pay much attention to brain, the biology of the brain. Yeah, I believe so. And you know that when people are dying, the last organ to die is the brain. It's a very important organ, but often overlooked. But there are different sections of the brain that deals with voice, interpretation of data, how you critically think, how you balance, you walk and balance. That's why if there's a car accident and somebody's brain is damaged, you notice that the walking can't come back all now because there are different sections of the brain that deals with everything that is connected to your body. So if it deals with the voice, the hearing, interpretation of data, once it's affected, then you start to hear voice in a abnormal way. It's almost like a computer when it burn up. Everything shows crashed. It's just all over the place. So then they start to hear voices from the inside, and it sounds just like you hearing me now. But it's just that that part of the brain is it needs some attention, and the chemicals in the brain are off balance.
Yes, I want to ask again that if, like a person having the drugs for a calm down of his brain, like have the problem.
Temporary relief, like the weed and the
and they cannot get them crazy.
the weed.
Yeah.
Yes, very good question. It gives temporary relief, but the weed itself has chemicals that do affect the brain and damages the brain long term. It actually causes emotional dysregulation. So it means their emotions are dysregulated. So we Jamaicans would have say, in quote unquote, they're up in them feelings. Everything they're up in them feelings, and it's sensitive. Right? So they're not regulating their emotions properly. They get withdrawn. It affects how they interpret data too, and they get slowed down. You know, where you used to be so proactive and getting up and doing things on time, they kind of slow down. They're dragging. Yeah. And they don't have much willpower after a while. So it does affect the brain. But it's a temporary relief, but they're not recognizing the truth of the fact that backed by science, it does more damage. Any other questions?
Earlier on, you mentioned that mental illness could be affected by environmental factors. Could you expound on that a little for me?
Sure. So, environmental factors may include growing up in a community where the poor child has to be hearing the gunshot every night. That's trauma. Running under the bed. The bad words. Walking on the street from school, seeing how most individuals after work or so, they sit down and they drink at the bar. Those are the unhealthy coping strategies that they do. They learn unhealthy ways to cope with stress, the weed, chilling at the corner, inappropriate sexual activity, having more than one, baby mamas, unhealthy family life setting, things like that. So it's like within the community, and you're just there in your small corner trying to grow this child properly, but the percentage of individuals who normalize these unhealthy behaviors make you feel like you're not normal. And then you grow your child, and when the child reaches 16, 17, they're under serious peer pressure out there. You say, oh, you know, come with you, you're idiot. You study book, you're fully in no sense, because in their head, it's normal. But you are making you're making conscious choices every day to groom and grow your child, to know what it is to cope healthy, to know what it is to have good relationships, to know what it is not to take drugs to induce certain things. And you're growing your child to know that education is very important, because nobody can take that out of your head. And education will allow you to have financial freedom and independence. While everybody else in the community is finding a way to depend on somebody, to thief somebody money, or to become dependent to somebody and be a slave to somebody. Right? So those are some of the environmental factors that exist. So separating children sometimes is important. You can separate them, you know. You can know that you grow your child to a point, and separation is okay. I don't know why people don't think separation is bad. But separation is okay when the environment is too overwhelming and overburdening. So the child probably can reach maybe like about 16, and you notice the peer pressure getting serious, that the grades falling, this not happening. Just try to explore within your family setting. Which family member can I send this child to just finish off this? Because this environment not gonna work. It's not going to achieve the goal that we need to achieve to get this boy out of this place. All right? Any other question?
Lord.
It can. And it could be covered up in ways like I'm a professional, and really and truly it's hard for somebody to know when I am not okay. So it takes my immediate family members, or I have certain supportive friends who will call me out and say, Deborah, you're not okay. And then I'd say, what do you mean I'm not okay? I am this, I'm that, and they call you out. So it can cover up in, because reality is, when you look at the different classes of life, the rich, the poor, the middle class, the rich have mental illness, do you know? The poor have it too. But the difference between the two is the managing. Is the knowledge of managing it, you know. And also the knowledge of getting the appropriate health care for it. But it can be covered up in cases like a professional or somebody hiding it and they don't want the person to know, or all of that. And, you know, honestly, I recognize there is a culture with society. And what we're finding out, because I am on the management team for all the bad boys who they say are bad or behavioral issues on the island, they come to my facility. And why boys are residential? Because we're losing our men. So our men also is struggling with mental challenges too. But because they're expected to be strong all the time, right? We women don't recognize it because the good old book said them to provide, protect, and serve. So if they not provide, I must something they not do right. But they could be hurting too. There could be something that's going on that they need the support.
As you know, the thing is, one of the things that I see basically in this, because I've never seen so many mental health issues in my lifetime.
Yeah, after COVID, right?
After
I think COVID just came and just put a catalyst to it to just rev it up. It's true. You're right, sir. And that's a good observation. It is. It's a challenge we have. And the children would have been traumatized during COVID, and they have to carry that trauma through their stages of development. But there's always hope for Christians, because God reminds us that when we draw back to family life and when we get the interventions to support each other, it strengthens back the family. Every covenant that God gave us is where the healing is. So if you're looking outside of the covenant to heal, good luck to you. You'll get caught up in the system. But the healing is there, and God provided that. So we just need to get back to some basics. And the renewing of the mind was one of them. Where are the days when we have house devotion in our homes? Where is that? We need to go back there, because that's a form of renewing of the mind. Where are the days when the good old gospel, the station, the Christian station is playing straight through in the kitchen, the place where everybody eats? It's right there, so the radio for there.
So basically then, in these days of social media, do you think we can really, as you say, that was the follow-up question, what can we do to really, but with the social media, issues that we're having, it is not an easy task these days really, because basically from before the kid is born, they are, they call it computer babies.
That's true. That is true. They are computer babies, and the virtual world will affect the mind in terms of the things that you see on the virtual world are not reality most times. Most times they're not. So it's like you're watching something and it's not reality, and then you go to bed and you start to draw on that hope that isn't reality, which is almost delusional, right? So yes, it can affect us, but we still have to try to preserve the tools that God has given us to preserve our mind and to keep it in perfect peace. He said, if your mind is stayed upon me, I will do what? Keep you in what? Okay, so social media is stayed upon what they need to stay upon. I need to stay upon what I need to stay upon. And that is to stay my mind on God, so that he can keep me and my family in perfect peace. Because they're going to come for the peace, They're going to run coming for that peace in your home. Because it's going to get worse. So they're going to run come for that peace straight in your home. Any other questions? Well, that's it. Evening.
Okay. If persons lock away in their room and don't want to see anybody, don't want to talk to anybody, and just keep on crying, what can you explain?
That's somebody who is struggling with their emotions and something is happening. So I would take the approach of reaching out as often as possible, right? Because love and compassion is a very important tool to helping individuals when they're withdrawn, when they're in avoidance mode. But you don't want to come off aggressive. So you could knock on the door, continue to tell them something nice, play some music, push some things under the door until they find a way to make it out. Even if you have to sit under the door and sing a song and pray for them, they must come out. They must come out. But we have to be so determined to be supportive. We have to be so determined to show love. We have to be so determined to show compassion. Because the reality is, guys, love covers a multitude of sins. You know what that multitude of sins was? Generations on top of generation. The love that you show today to one individual in your family can break a generational cycle for 6 years. That's what it means. Right? So that weak link in your family that you think is the biggest problem, and you know, call them the black sheep, you know, call them the this, but just the extending of the love and compassion, the extending of the care that you're showing, it breaks cycles and it creates a positive, healthy pattern for the next generation to come. All right? All right. Thank you so much for listening.
Come on, can we give her a hearty round of applause? Yes, that was a wonderful presentation, and Ms. Della Pena, we say thank you so much on behalf of the host pastor and the brethren of Sharp Park Tabernacle. We say thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation, and I think we probably need to get you another time so we can have a larger crowd so they can hear, because this is a serious condition that we have in society, and we need more persons to understand what's happening. And as you said, don't shame them, don't treat them anyway, because it's a serious issue, all right? And we can help. And I want to point out something. She mentioned family. I want us as believers to understand that once you become a child of God, we are family. So you don't just look out for the person that is related to you by blood. All of us inside here are families. So that means I'm supposed to be looking out for you and you look out for me. We have that issue in the body of Christ where it's as if we are separated, and that should not be the case. And what happened is just like so you have your own daughter, son, or niece, or nephew, or auntie will lock away in the room. It's the same way your church brother and sister lock away. You see them come at church and them lock up one side in the church corner. Them not say hi, them not say howdy. You don't see them worship, and you think say unsaved, they are saved or backslide, them backslide. They are having a breakdown. They are going through depression. They are going through a struggle. Reach out. So I really think this is something that every church needs to hear. Every church. And so we thank you again for making that wonderful presentation, mixing the natural with the spiritual and blessing our heart. God bless you. She said that, sometimes we have to take some breaks. So we are going to take a break now. We don't want to overload your brains because we have another session at, well, it was scheduled for 6 o'clock. But seeing the time now, we might have to push it a little bit. Yes. Sure. They want a contact number for you. What's the procedure? Do they email you? Do they call? All right, so it's 975. So the number I'm giving you is for the Della Pena's office. So let's start again. It's 317-4078. So 317-4078. So you can call the Della Pena's office, and her Instagram page is renew_my_mind. All right, so go ahead, follow. Before you leave out, we know we have another session, but can we close this one in prayer? So can you just join me in bowing your hearts? Father, we thank you for your grace, your love, and your mercies. We thank you for this session, mighty God, that you have blessed us with. We thank you for the presentator, mighty God. I pray you bless her. I pray, Father, you continue to enlarge her territory, her, mighty God, domain, as she spread this word of mental health, mighty God, and help others to recover and help to teach others how to treat others through recovery, mighty God. I pray that you will touch our